My name's Ed Snowden.
Former NSA analyst Edward Snowden charged.
He went through and turned over only a small portion of those documents to us.
I think Snowden is like a watershed.
I think there's nothing changed.
A lot of change.
First, let's talk about what Snowden has done. Leaks.
You may have heard about PRISM, but what exactly does it mean? PRISM is a key surveillance program unveiled by Snowden. It was the first time ever the public got to know how the US government watches your phone, your text messages on a daily basis.
How does PRISM work?
The national security agencies ask internet service providers like Google to give users private information to the US government.
The second type of collection, or type 2, is called upstream, which means collection from the cables. And this constitutes the 70% of the kind of espionage activities.
What did you talk to Snowden? What did he told you? Can you share some details?
No.
What's the significance?
The significance is that we are under total surveillance by the United States. It also says it was a proof that United States doesn't give a shit on other countries' interests.
You know what? The US is able to do it legally under their law. So just how can they do it without breaching laws?
Mm-hmm.
And the Section 702 basically says that the United States is allowed to watch or to target communications of foreign persons abroad.
But the US government exploited to collect vast amounts of personal data within America.
There is a division of labor among the Five Eyes countries. For example, UK is responsible for Europe, and New Zealand and Australia is responsible for Asia Pacific. There is Canada. Canada is interestingly responsible for the watching of the 102 file sharing websites. And the United States is like a big spider in the middle of a web, coordinating all these spying activities.
Snowden in the past decade has given us enough materials to go on about the extensive spying conducted by the US. Snowden himself has become a symbolic figure revealing the hidden and hypocritical. You had a trip to visit Snowden in 2020, and what made you decide to visit him?
He has done a huge, very brave work, I think, and we need such courageous people like Edward Snowden, and I wanted to show my solidarity with him as a whistleblower, of course, and some other things.
The significance of the Snowden revelations is way bigger than just a prison.
They watch 122 world leaders. I call it 100 surnames of world leaders, or 百家姓. 2014, it was reported by a German website that is called, as I read here, Target Knowledge Database. Actually, they pay more attention to the allies. Perhaps because these allies use the service providers from the United States. It's easier for the United States to target the allies.
Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, was one of their prime targets. But it did not stop there. They were also snooping on political figures in France, Sweden, Norway, and other countries. No one was safe from their prying eyes.
Here's the kicker. The US didn't differentiate between allies and non-allies when it comes to spying. They went as far as spying on the United Nations. They monitored the internal meeting at the UN headquarters. Within less than 3 weeks, the Snowden documents revealed the US eavesdropped on internal communications at the UN, a total of 458 times.
Well, I think Edward Snowden opened the eyes for the whole world. US doesn't care about allies, so-called allies. It showed us that the US is actually interested not in allies, they're just interested in vessels. That's why they are surveillancing everyone, everywhere, everything.
It's been a decade since Snowden's leak, and what has changed?
Absolutely nothing, and it's only got worse. The US government made promises, but they never stick.
Here we got a declassified court ruling from ODNI. Under Section 702, the FBI searched a massive digital database without warrants, more than 278,000 times in just 2020 and early 2021.
They had no warrant, and this does not include abuses of warrants when they had them, when it comes to spying.
Do you know who became their targets?
Hundreds of Americans connected to the protest after George Floyd killing came under scrutiny. And the protesters on the Capitol angry at the US lawmakers. They were using these surveillance tools to crush political dissent.
When we think about the intelligence community, we often think about the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. You know, it's much bigger than you think. Back in 2010, the Washington Post reported over 1,000 official organizations, nearly 2,000 private companies in 10,000 locations in the US, spying around the world, and that was 13 years ago. You can imagine the staggering increase since then.
I cannot find any updated data like this in media reports today. So US spy agencies might be aware of the issue, and so now it's all hidden from the public view.
The spending on surveillance technologies keeps blooming. Check out the 2-year research fund from Georgetown University. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency's annual spending on surveillance went from 71 million in 2008 to 388 million last year. And ICE checked personal data of an overwhelming percentage of American adults using their utility bills, facial recognition, even their cars. It is not just immigrants they are targeting.
In May, when the 27 foreign ministers of EU met in Sweden, they did not take mobile phones, they did not take iPads, they did not take any electronic device. They are afraid of being watched by the United States, but they dare not to say it, they dare not to claim it. They had to claim that they are afraid of being watched by other nations.
I think they don't dare to accuse their friend, the so-called friend, which is not a friend in that way, because we know from Germany that the German defense minister was spied by the United States.
So the trust between the US and its allies was significantly reduced by the events like Snowden leaks and the leaks this year.
Could be engaged in cyber support for those in the streets in Russia. We did some of that during the Arab Spring when I was Secretary of State. I think we could be also attacking a lot of the government institutions.
It's not just about someone eavesdropping on your doorstep. It's about the potential for someone to violently smash your entire house. Surveillance technology has turned into a deadly weapon.
The RAND Corporation predicts that by 2024, the number of US Cyber Mission Force teams with full operational capabilities may reach 167. It is a 25% increase compared with just last year. China is also a victim of the US cyber war. According to Chinese cyber authorities, over 42 malicious computer programs were uncovered in China in 2020, with the majority of originated from the US.
The United States, in cooperation with the UK, collects data from these undersea cables. This MTI project, Mastering the Internet project, has the funding of £1 billion. The Lockheed Martin is responsible for the implementation of this project, and also BAE Systems. So these traditional players are now spending their are touching upon the cyberspace to make money. They are called the cyber military industrial complex.
The US is the biggest surveillance empire in the world. China recently moved to ban Micron after its products failed to pass a security review. The US toolbox does not only include cyber attacks, but also the use of American companies to steal data.
Meanwhile, the US has hypocritically sanctioned Huawei and 1,000 Chinese companies over national security concerns. But so far, we see no evidence provided.
They claim that it is about national security because you have to say it is about national security. In that way, you can get the budget approved by the Congress. You can also tell the public you can say it is about national security. In that way, you can legitimize these projects. But it's much beyond the needs of security. So it is mainly about money, I have to say.
The accusations are grave. They must be explained, and more importantly, for the future, new trust must be built.
Ce n'est pas acceptable entre alliés, de manière très claire. Ça l'est encore moins entre alliés et partenaires européens.